What is going on, everybody? Liv Moods here from a little bit of a different setting. If you guys tuned in this morning to Jesse, he mentioned that we have some construction in the studio. This is probably a one-time thing. Maybe not. We may have construction again, in which case I will be here. I will still be giving you guys content, but we are live from inside the home, and we are talking all things Western Conference today, actually, as well as the Denver Nuggets. A little bit later, I'll be bringing BK on with me to talk all things. What did he see at Summer League? How are we feeling about this Nuggets standstill in the offseason? And again, in talking about the Western Conference, we'll also talk a little bit about where do the Nuggets stand within the Western Conference now that we've seen some of these offseason changes. We know that as we approach August, what we see is kind of what we get. We're starting to see these rosters a little bit more confirmed and established. And the Nuggets right now still kind of in a weird limbo. Obviously, losing DaRon Holmes, which we talked about on the last show, was a bit of a blow to this Nuggets team. That was a big move that they made, along with adding a backup center behind Jokic. But in doing that and having those be our only two moves, really, aside from losing KCP and Reggie Jackson, when DaRon went out with his Achilles injury, it definitely had this Nuggets fan base feeling a little bit like, what is next? What are we doing? But until we talk to BK, we are going to talk a little bit about the Western Conference as a whole. A lot of teams making a lot of changes in the offseason. I always find it very, very interesting because in the NBA, unlike the NFL, right? Like in the NFL, you've got moves that are happening, players, big time players that are changing teams. But for the most part, the NFL teams stay about the same, right? When you get these quarterbacks that make so much money, the team pretty much stays the way that it is. In the NBA, each offseason, it feels like we get a completely new basketball team, which makes it obviously very exciting, but can make it very nerve-wracking if you are an NBA fan and your team is either not making moves or not making the best moves. Obviously, all of these teams in the NBA participate in the offseason, get draft picks, make trades to big name players, and it can either be a really great thing. We saw that with the Celtics. Obviously, getting Jrue Holiday was probably the best thing they could have done for their team, and probably a large reason why they won the championship. Not even probably. Jrue Holiday is a large reason why the Celtics had a successful championship run this season. So we know off-season moves do matter. So let's talk about the Western Conference as a whole. Before we get into that, hello to you if you are in the chat. I'm actually going to hop on my phone really quick. I'm going to let the people on Twitter know that we are live. We are here. We are talking all things Western Conference, all things Denver Nuggets. Don't be afraid to get in the chat. Let me know that you're here. Say what's up. Later on in the show, we may pop some comments up on the screen if you guys have some hot takes or some questions or some strong opinions about things that I've said. Do not be afraid to share. So I'm going to let everybody know, come hang. We are talking all things Western Conference. And then we're going to get into it, guys. We're going to get into it because I have a lot to say. And I actually made a little bit. Hello, David. Yes, we have a switch in scenery. I just recently moved into a new home. So at one point, this looked like a demolition construction zone, but now we've got it all tidied up and we're feeling very happy with our space. So you guys are getting a little inside scoop here of where I do my office watching and Law and Order SVU and all that good stuff. So either way, we are here. We have construction in the studio in downtown Denver, but nonetheless, the content will continue. Jesse was live this morning, and this evening, this late afternoon, you can catch Nate Jackson on Dumb Jock talking all things football. So lots of content today, but let's get into the Western Conference. I went ahead and made my top 10 ranking of the Western Conference as it stands right now. Basically, who made the best offseason moves, who made the worst offseason moves, and what does that top 10 look like right now? I want to start off strong with who I would argue had the best offseason across the NBA, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. To me, they had the best offseason. They made the best moves, and they addressed their issues, which is obviously a really important thing to do in the offseason. What were their issues in this postseason run? Yes, a very young team and the number one seed in the Western Conference, but fell short making a deep playoff run. Why is that? Well, I think they were missing veteran presence, which they have now added in Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein. So two veterans now that you're having join this group. And I think also, Alex Caruso doubles as a fix to the problem that was Josh Giddey. To me, Josh Giddey just did not fit in this roster. was not going to be the guy to help push this team into a deep playoff run. But Caruso, he addresses the issue that is Josh Giddey and brings a lot to this from a defensive perspective. I think he'll give a lot of defenses problems because of his style of play. So Caruso, great add. You've got Isaiah as well as that center to really go alongside Chet. I think that's a great dynamic duo there. So to me, OKC by far had the best offseason, and I've got them sitting again in that number 1 seed in the Western Conference where it stands right now. The next team that I want to talk about, and this may be a controversial opinion based on who I put at 2 and not 3. I've got the Timberwolves at 2 right now. And some may say, why wouldn't the Mavericks be there? They gave the Timberwolves hell in the Western Conference Finals. To me, they brought back most of their core, a core that was a very winning core in the regular season, and obviously gave the Denver Nuggets, the reigning NBA championship team hell, which we saw and we mourned and we cried over. But this Timberwolves team brought back most of their core. Yes, they did lose Kyle Anderson, which affects their defense, but bringing on Joe Ingles, to me, should be able to continue that defense that Kyle Anderson brought, as well as add the ability to be a little bit more of a consistent and reliable shooter. So to me, they only got better in the offseason, and they're already a great team. So I've got the Timberwolves at 2 right now. In that number 3 spot, yes, the Dallas Mavericks, although they had a very hard time competing against the Boston Celtics, to me, they still are coming off of a finals appearance and managed to keep their 2 most important guys together, obviously Luka and Kyrie, but also get a little bit better. Yes, they brought on Klay Thompson. And if you think Klay Thompson is washed, you may not be wrong in feeling that way. He definitely is not in his prime, but does he make this team better? Yes, you would be foolish not to think so. To me, Klay Thompson is not going to be prime Klay Thompson on this team. He's going to go alongside Luka and Kyrie in their playmaking abilities. And to me, that trio could be very, very dangerous for this Western Conference, because offensively, we know Klay Thompson can be great. Do I think that maybe being on the Warriors was a bit of an environmental thing? I think that maybe it was. I think there were some culture issues over in Golden State. But yeah, Klay Thompson, as washed as he may be, I do think alongside Kyrie and Luka, he will make this roster better. So that's important to talk about. In that number 4 spot are the Denver Nuggets. And yes, I know we're kind of in this standstill right now. I think much of how I feel about the Denver Nuggets being in that 4 spot really depends on what are we doing with Russell Westbrook? What are we doing with that point guard position, period? I want to talk a little bit to BK about that. Is my biggest concern right now. We lost Reggie Jackson. I think you're crazy if you don't think Russell Westbrook is an upgrade from Reggie Jackson. That's just my humble opinion. However, if we lose Reggie Jackson and we do nothing to put a veteran in that point guard position behind Jamal Murray, right now we're looking like we have a very unreliable point guard position. From Jamal Murray showing inconsistencies, also being injury prone, to then having Trey Alexander, who I'm happy to see is now ahead of Jalen Pickett in the projected depth chart. But even still, it's not a reliable point guard position right now. So would love to see some veteran status there. Would love to see Russell Westbrook there. But again, having the Nuggets in this 4th spot, much of this too was also based on the fact that we had lost DaRon to an Achilles injury. So that changes things, but still going to put them here because that starting 4, I will say, CB being a new addition, is still strong, does have a lot of talent. So we're going to keep the Nuggets at 4, but it's not feeling super great until we make another offseason move. In the number 5 spot, the Grizzlies, the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that at one point had all this electricity and excitement around them. Ja Morant, we know, has a very electric and exciting play style, but got injured, also dealt with some off-court issues. I think Ja Morant coming back. We also know that across this Grizzlies roster were some injuries. We should have the combination of Desmond Bane, Ja Morant, and Marcus Smart all being together. Jaren Jackson Jr. proved that he can be that guy for this team, especially when Ja Morant goes out. So I do think that this team is kind of on the up and coming. They're going to flip things around, especially getting that addition of Zach Edey at center. I think that this is a team that can make a lot of noise. They also, too, had a pretty strong core before Ja Morant fell injured. We know that in the postseason kind of struggled against teams like the Warriors, this, that, the other, but got rid of Dylan Brooks, have added Marcus Smart. So to be able to see them healthy and actually playing together consistently, I think this team could make some noise. So I've got the Grizzlies at 5. In that 6th spot, is the Kings, the Sacramento Kings, which we know in the 2022-2023 season, they arguably had the best offense across the league. Very electric, very exciting to watch. Kind of reminded me of the Detroit Lions of the NFL, where it's like, okay, I don't know if I trust you with my money to win a Super Bowl or to win a championship, but definitely the most electric offense out there. There may be a little bit of an adjustment period with this Kings team that I think we need to keep in mind, which is finding that chemistry between a DeRozan and a De'Aaron Fox and a Domantas Sabonis, because they all handle the ball in a very similar way and have the ball in their hands a lot. So what will that chemistry look like? There may be a little bit of an adjustment period for this team, but I do think those three guys are very dynamic and unselfish players. So I think they will figure it out. There may just be a little bit of a time period there where we go, okay, we can see it, but it's not clicking. Eventually, I think it will click. I've got them at 6, and they had a draft pick, Devin Carter, who provides a lot of defensive upside for this team as well. So I think they're sitting in a good spot. In that 7th spot, and you're probably sitting there going, Liv, I haven't heard the Warriors. I haven't heard the Suns. That's right. That is not a mistake. In that 7th spot, we've got the Pelicans. Much of the Pelicans' success to me relies on Zion Williamson. We saw him in the play-in games really tearing it up, actually. And it was pretty heartbreaking to see him go down with an injury. So I think if we get a healthy, super athletic version of Zion in this upcoming season, much of the success of this team relies on him. I want to talk about CJ McCollum just very briefly. To me, one of those guys where in his prime, when he was a little bit younger and a little more fresh, he was somebody that I really feared and honestly enjoyed betting on as well as a sports bettor. So I will say, I don't feel that way anymore. And I know that this Pelicans team was kind of in an experimental phase with CJ McCollum in terms of having him play that point guard role. They don't need to do that anymore. They've got DeJounte Murray, who I love as the starting point guard. I do think there are still some big question marks at center, which is why I have them at 7 and not any higher. But I do think they've got a lot of talent on this team. It's going to depend a lot on Zion Williamson and what they decide to do with that center position. Moving on to number 8, it is the Warriors. Yes, they still have Steph Curry. I know I am not ignoring that fact, but is Steph Curry enough? Is Steph Curry enough to fix what is so broken over in the Warriors organization? I think that we saw obviously Draymond Green with some culture issues, which I don't think many people are surprised about. They lost Klay Thompson, even though he was not in his prime. He was a piece of this puzzle that I think mattered. It seems to me like this Warriors team is investing in some younger guys, maybe hitting the refresh button a little bit, trying to build around a guy like Steph Curry, and that may work, but I don't think it's going to work in this upcoming season. There are some additions. Kyle Anderson, Buddy Hield, DeAnthony Melton can serve this roster in a much more youthful way, which again is one of those things that you take a risk, you build around your younger guys. It could work for you. It just may not work right away. So feeling optimistic about maybe the future of the Warriors, maybe not so much this upcoming season. The 3 guys that I mentioned, they bring some solid defense as well as some volume 3-point shooting, something that they once had with Klay and didn't see anymore towards the end of his time with the Golden State Warriors. So there's some upside there for the Warriors, but they're not a team that I trust. Again, I could put them dead last in my top 10, but at the end of the day, they still have Steph Curry, right? And they still have a pretty good head coach, and they've got Draymond Green. As crazy as he may be, as loud as he may be, as obnoxious as you may think he is, he does bring an aggression that really can't be taught in this league. And I think actually we're seeing a lot of the reverse when we have these younger players joining the league. So in that 9th spot, we've got the Rockets. Okay. They actually did not make a ton of changes in the offseason, but they did add veterans the year before in Dylan Brooks, as well as Van Vliet. Yes, Van Vliet to this roster. So they've got some older guys that I think they can really mold around. They had a 500-year last season, so they didn't really need to make a huge amount of changes in the offseason. I think it's just continuing to get in that rhythm, get in that flow. They did, however, draft Reed Shepherd, who has a lot of potential to be a really, really great shooter for this team and has already had a very impressive summer league debut. So there's some upside there. They did make that addition. But again, I think they're kind of focusing on the veterans that they have that didn't have a bad season. They didn't have a phenomenal one, but didn't have a bad season. So I think they're just going to continue to be that team that could cause some problems, could not. I don't want to call them average, but I've got them in the 9th spot because who knows? Who knows what they bring? And finally, at number 10, Should it be the Suns? I don't know. But the Lakers are at 10 because they do still have LeBron and AD. I hate to say it, but with those two superstars, you really always have potential for a successful season. Now, why I have them at 10, why I have them last in my top 10 is because, yes, with LeBron and AD, you always have that potential to be great, right? However, outside of that, well, I will also give credit to the new coaching staff that they are building around. I think that will help them tremendously. But aside from LeBron, AD, and a new coaching staff, outside of what I've mentioned so far, the Lakers roster to me is pretty unserious. And I don't mean that as a hater or a Twitter troll. I'm being genuine when I say, yes, it is very cool to see a father-son duo play together. It's historic, and it really is a very cool thing to see. However, it's not going to help you get Bronny James is not going to help this team make a deep championship run. Just not. And you could say, well, that's not his role on this team. That's not what JJ's using him for, but you use a draft pick for him. So, you know what I mean? That's something where you could have gotten something else. You got Bronny. Is he going to help you make a deep championship run? I don't think so. Is it cool that he's playing with his dad, who is LeBron James? It's absolutely cool. Yes. But besides LeBron, AD, and a new coaching staff, to me, the Lakers are unserious. I've got them at 10. Where are the Suns? Don't care. Hate them. Don't care. Bradley Beal did not fix any of the issues they had, and I don't think they fixed any more of the issues in the offseason this year. They have a bunch of once-upon-a-time superstars that I have all the love for in the world, but I don't trust them in a very competitive and young Western Conference. It's that simple. So that is my top 10 for the Western Conference as it stands right now, seeing offseason moves, seeing all these teams playing chess and getting excited about the upcoming season. Still, of course, waiting for the Denver Nuggets to do something. Shortly, we're going to be bringing on BK to talk all things Denver Nuggets specifically because, again, we're kind of waiting. What are we doing? We're seeing some rumblings about Russell Westbrook being waived from the Clippers. That is what is on the radar for this team. But we haven't heard anything official on that yet. So kind of hard to get excited about something that we just don't really know a ton about yet. But when we bring on BK, I'm going to ask him his opinions on the depth chart that the Nuggets have right now. While we wait for BK, I will go ahead and walk through that depth chart with you. Let's get into it. At point guard, obviously, to me, this is a very unreliable point guard lineup. I mentioned that earlier. So what do we have in that point guard position? Well, we've got Jamal Murray at the head, who does struggle with injuries from time to time. Okay. You've got Jamal Murray at the head. Now, in a potential depth chart that was put on TV, and you can find it online right now on ESPN, Trey Alexander is actually next up ahead of Jalen Pickett. And to me, this is a no-brainer situation, okay? So you've got Jamal Murray, you've got Trey Alexander behind him, who I think has some upside. Do I trust him, though? No, he's unproven at this point. Jalen Pickett, same thing, unproven. So point guard position to me, not feeling great about it. Do feel better about having Trey ahead of Jalen, but that's not saying a whole lot. Still don't feel great about the point guard position, which is why a Russell Westbrook off the bench would make me feel a whole lot better. Let's talk about that shooting guard position. Kind of one of those positions right now with this Denver Nuggets team that's maybe the most exciting, right? We've seen CB in the postseason really make an impact for this Denver Nuggets team. He is projected to be the starter, which I think a lot of us saw coming. But behind him is Julian Strawther, who has had a phenomenal summer league debut, but has had a phenomenal summer league performance. We know last season he was injured. Michael Malone has actually spoke very highly of Strawther and said, yeah, it was kind of unfortunate that he got injured because there is a lot of upside to this guy. So very excited to see this shooting guard position and how it unfolds. I think there's a lot of potential here. I think both of these guys have the talent and can be coached and can be molded to be starters on this team. So feeling like this is a unproven position for this Nuggets team right now, but very high ceiling, which is obviously very exciting. We've got the small forward position, Michael Porter Jr. obviously starting there, and Hunter Tyson behind him. My one word when I see this small forward position, when I see this depth chart here for this position is size. We've got size at the small forward position, which we know is what makes MPJ so special. Even if his threes aren't landing, even if he's showing some inconsistencies, he's got size, and that makes him pretty valuable. So excited to see the size in this position as this season unfolds. That's how I feel about that. As for the power forwards, Aaron Gordon, obviously at the start, I said he was one of the guys to me that needed to be untouched in the offseason, because when he's on, man, he is on, and he is exceptional. I'm going to pause on this because we do actually have BK here, and we're going to stop there. We'll get his feelings on that power forward position as well as that center position, see how he's feeling there. BK, how are you?
I'm doing great, Liv. Yeah, listening to that breakdown, and I do want to get into the Russell Westbrook stuff, but we're finishing up with power forward, and we got the center. We certainly know Zeke Najee's under contract. He's more of a power forward than a center, but I just don't know if I still don't understand why they gave him that $32 million deal over 4 years.
I don't either.
I guess it's fine. It's not my money. We know that DaRon Holmes II, he was certainly going to be a big part of the lineup, maybe playing 4 at times next to Joker, giving Aaron Gordon a break on the floor with Aaron Gordon, where he's likely the backup center. And then, of course, the kid ruptures his Achilles in that opener. And so being at Summer League for a couple days and talking to people with the Nuggets and around the league, it's going to be interesting to see how they address not having their top draft pick now for his entire rookie season. And then where can you go to add that depth? And then we got to circle back around to Russell Westbrook. But I do know this, Nikola Jokic at center, the Nuggets are pretty well set there with him in the middle as a 3-time MVP. So it's at least a good place to start. Although when we start going through those names and you talk about backup point guard beyond Russell Westbrook, and you look at no KCP, obviously no more Bruce Brown, going back to shooting guard, CB, plenty of upside there. Julian Strawther can really shoot the rock, and he looked good in those first 2 Summer League games. We know he's not playing today. And so I think that you like his ability to put the ball in the basket as well. We'll see how well he can guard. That's really what's going to allow him to stay on the floor longer. And with CB, it's kind of the opposite. We know he can really guard. It's can he provide enough scoring consistently? So they're in really good shape, as they should be. You just don't love the depth. And they got younger, which is something Calvin Booth was focused on, something Michael Malone probably didn't love, and it probably cost him a chance at a repeat last year. But I don't think they're in as bad a shape as we all thought they were when you went through the Lakers breakdown and you go through some of these other teams. But there is room for growth, not just with their young players, but to add another body. And they have to address now losing DaRon Holmes, even if it's someone on a 1-year deal, if there's a trade to be made for a future first or maybe a couple of firsts, if there's somebody out there that's unhappy that you can get quality minutes. Because I do think that they wouldn't mind having DeAndre Jordan back. You just don't want him to play. You want him to basically be another coach. So a lot to get into, but it was a fun few days out at Summer League, that's for sure.
Yeah. Did you happen to see kind of what was because when you and I actually together had gone to that Summer League practice and spoke to some of the guys, I think there was this overarching, like there was some chemistry that was already being built. It sounds like they're already kind of establishing their own unit within the Denver Nuggets unit. Did you get a sense for that out there? Did you feel like this is a young group of either rookies or bench players that is starting to establish a more reliable bench for this Denver Nuggets team?
Yeah, look, they know they're going to be counted on. Jalen Pickett, the day that you and I were there, was asked about filling that vacant backup role. We do think it's likely going to be Russell Westbrook, at least that's if you're reading the tea leaves. But when you look at the play of Trey Alexander, that's what you have to be excited about. It's when guys kind of come out of nowhere, and no one's Creighton's been a tournament team the last couple of years, but no one's going to confuse them with Kansas or Duke or Kentucky. And so he just keeps finding ways to put the ball in the basket. I think you probably don't love where he's at. Look, he's a rookie. You don't love where he's at enough to jump him ahead of Russell Westbrook and not sign Russell Westbrook if and when that comes to pass. But I think you really have to like his upside. Hunter Tyson hasn't shot the ball great by his standards, but we know that he's more athletic than people realize. And you talk about size, you can sneak with getting him some minutes at the 4, MPJ at the 4. You can be big, even if you're playing Aaron Gordon at the 5, which is what they're going to have to do certainly in close games and in the playoffs until we know who that viable backup is, because it's just not Zeke Naji. But I think you can get away with a lineup that'll have Aaron Gordon, MPJ, and Hunter Tyson up front together. And so I think it is exciting to see where will Christian Braun get to. He was there watching a couple of these games. I got to chat with him in passing just a little bit. And so he's got a great opportunity, even if he's trying to downplay it. how does MPJ just continue to build on all the good things he's done and maybe push that Minnesota series behind him, and hopefully the off-court family issues that aren't any of his doing can take a back seat and everything there kind of calm down, and he can just have an even bigger year. Because if they're not going to move him, doesn't seem like they're going to, and not that you or I were advocating that, unless it was maybe say for a Kevin Durant. MPJ is being paid as the 30th best player in the league, or he's the 30th highest paid player in the league. So you want to see that, and you want to see a new deal for Jamal Murray, and you want to see him make an all-star team. So the Nuggets aren't as bad off as I think Nuggets Nation was so disappointed when they blow a 20-point lead. But talking to folks with the Mavericks, obviously we're in the finals, and the way that team is constructed and the way some of these other teams are, everyone's really intrigued by what the Spurs are going to be when Wemby reaches his apex, but we're a few years away from that. So I think the Nuggets are going to be fine, and these young players are going to have to be counted on. And I do think that there is a chemistry, and just those guys being around the defending champs all year, being around Joker and Jamal and MPJ and KCP can only be good for Strother and Tyson and Pickett.
I agree. So let's talk about, I guess, to close with you, BK. What are, to you, what is the upside of Russell Westbrook addition, and what is the downside of a Russell Westbrook addition?
Well, I think the downside, and it's funny because for a guy that has averaged a triple-double, he's been a league MVP. Am I right? He's been a league MVP. He's definitely averaged a triple-double. Has he been an MVP?
Okay. We have breaking news right now. Woj ESPN just tweeted, the Los Angeles Clippers are sending guard Russell Westbrook a second-round pick swap and cash to the Utah Jazz in a sign and trade agreement for guard Chris Dunn.
Well, all right. I guess we can stop talking about Russell Westbrook and what he means to the Nuggets right now. And and maybe in part that's because the Nuggets, as part of this youth movement, know they're about to break the bank for Jamal Murray. There's that expectation there, even if that's a shorter deal, so that he can maybe get one more big deal if he can make an All-NBA team or make an All-Star team. But that means that they probably have seen enough from Trey Alexander and Jalen Pickett. It's going to be a very young roster in spots, and Michael Malone probably is going to be pulling his hair out. But
the breaking news live is not giving me a chance to give myself some calm energy now.
But let me ask you. Let me throw the question back at you. What excited you about Russell Westbrook? Because I guess the things that he'll give you are the things that he's given his teams in recent years. Energy. He can handle the rock. He can run your team. He can go win you a game. But you can't really trust him in crunch time at all.
I think for me, what our bench is missing is a vet. I think that one thing I loved so much about KCP was that cool, calm, collected veteran energy that he brought that I think actually boded very well for the Nuggets. Look at the Lakers series. Down by 20, find a way to fight back. That becomes a little difficult with a young roster. Now, that being said, we do have starting five members that are, veterans. You've got a 3-time MVP on your side. You've got Jamal Murray, who's got a very high IQ in the sport. MPJ as well, Aaron Gordon. I mean, we've got that there, but to come off the bench, we've seen what this team looks like and how dramatically they change in those non-Jokic minutes and those non-Jamal minutes that, to me, it's just we've got a very unreliable point guard position right now. And I'm not saying that Russell Westbrook is the most reliable, but he does bring that veteran status. And he also brings a level of energy and athleticism that I think we need off of our bench. I think that the Nuggets tend to fall flat with their energy when the bench starts playing. And to me, I was very excited about the potential of Westbrook bringing that to this Nuggets team, not on the starting lineup, but from the bench. I think that was going to be very important. And I am sick to my stomach now.
Well, the fact that we're going to see Russell Westbrook obviously 4 times a year with a division rival, but it feels like the Jazz have a few more steps to go before you're really worried about them compared to some of these other teams in the West. I think that the second unit will have an opportunity, though, because they're going to be filled with so much youth, of kind of providing that energy on their own, right? The excitement of being out there versus Reggie Jackson. And you're like, okay, is that a good shot? Wait, why is he taking these crazy shots? There's that. But I'm going to throw 2 names at you that are available. As I scrolled through the list real quickly of free agents that I believe are still available, assuming that this list I just saw was up to date. One name folks around here certainly know, and it never really made sense why he couldn't find his footing in LA, but Spencer Dinwiddie's available, I believe. And so that's a guy that's played plenty of minutes, and obviously has played in some big spots. He's 31 now, so he's older, but not crazy old. So Spencer Dinwiddie obviously played his college ball at CU. So I've got that one. And then this one is going to be met with, I'm sure, plenty of pause. But if I'm not mistaken, in between podcasts, Pat Beverly is still available to play basketball
Absolutely.
right now. I don't think I'm banging the door down for that. And I don't know if anyone is. He may be done playing.
No, I am begging.
Those are the two veteran names that are out there right now that jumped out to me.
Yeah. So Pat Bev, that's a hard one because I've got to put my emotions aside. I find him to just be obnoxious.
He's insufferable.
He's very, very hard to deal with. And I think one thing I love about being a Denver Nuggets fan is we may not always win games, but damn it, we've got a really good group of guys. And Pat Bev throws all of that shit off, okay? So I'm not sure how I feel about that one. Dinwiddie, that's a conversation that I think I'd be willing to have. There's some upside there for sure. I think I just need the day to mourn the Westbrook loss. I think I very stupidly got my heart set on that. And that was the wrong thing to do because it's not over till it's over. It's not done until it's done. Signed, sealed, delivered. It wasn't. It was just rumored. I mean, Shams, who's a very credible source, said many, many, many times that, Westbrook or the Nuggets were the front runner to acquire Westbrook. So I had gotten my excitement up. I was feeling very good. What? Tyler says, Legion Hoops just tweeted that Russell Westbrook is expected to join the Nuggets after being bought out by the Jazz.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is. So maybe it's just that to make all the money work and everything else, you had to throw Chris Dunn in there. So maybe the Russell Westbrook thing is still happening. We understand there are layers to this oftentimes, and so I imagine that Woj and Shams will both have that as well here sooner than later, if that's the other mechanism in place. And so I get the excitement, and I was right. Not only is Russell Westbrook an MVP, he's a two-time MVP. He won it back-to-back.
There you go.
15 and 16. So I think
the chat is like, Liv was so upset. Still am, guys, because like I said, until it's done, signed, sealed, delivered, he has moved. We need to start tracking Zillow. We need to start looking at very nice houses that are on the market that get bought, and we need to start being FBI agents. Because if he buys a house out here, then we know there's some conversations happening we don't know about. But either way, I think, again, it's just that veteran. And again, in a weird way, BK, I said this on the last show, that in a weird way, Bruce Brown brought this veteran energy about him. Now, he's not a veteran you would list as being someone that's been in this league, who's, has seen it all and whatever, but he kind of brought that cool, calm, collected. You knew when Bruce Brown came off the bench, we're going to be all right. Like, we're going to be all right. The score will be maintained. He's going to bring that excitement and that energy. And sometimes that's all you need off the bench.
Well,
just
look,
keep the energy up.
You'll get that from Russ, but there are situations where he might shoot you out of a game, or all of a sudden you go from being
But is he worse than Reggie Jackson?
Down to no, and it won't be. It's pointed out by my guy Field Yates, who certainly specializes in the NFL, but on the heels of the Woj news. With the it does look like that buyout is coming, that for the second straight year, Russell Westbrook has been traded to the Jazz and negotiated a buyout with the Jazz. So good relationship between Russ and his agent and the Jazz front office, clearly. And so
we're just going to use Westbrook to Utah. He's just making a pit stop, little layover. He's killing some time. It'll be fine. He'll be in the Mile High City before we know it. I need this. I just think there's more upside with Russ than there was with Reggie. And if now I'm not saying Reggie was horrible. I think if we're going to lose Reggie Jackson, we've got to do something with the point guard position. I think there's upside with Trey Alexander. Absolutely. I am very excited to see what that looks like. But to me, that point guard position just feels shaky, rocky, and uncomfortable at this moment. So we've got to do something there. Got to.
Well, and to your point, adding more vets, it's never a bad thing to have guys who have been around the league for a long time and seen it all and done it all. We know the biggest thing for Russ, other than making it to the finals with KD and James Harden early in their career, it just hasn't been huge postseason success.
Right.
At the same time, if and when Jamal Murray has to miss a game, and we know that Jamal's injury history is what it is, I think you'll be fine with Russell Westbrook as your point guard. And here's the thing, too, is he'll just get the ball up the court. And there's actually going to be probably a scenario, just like we saw with Reggie and Jamal, certainly more early than late, where we will see those guys on the court together too, when you're maybe going a little smaller and you want Jamal to play off the ball a little bit. And that'll just be interesting to see how Michael Malone works that out. But with everything running specifically through Joker, that should be able to tamp down some of what you get from Russ in terms of the wildness. And I have to think that his time playing with LeBron and now this last season playing with Harden and PG and Kawhi,
being wanted by Jokic. We have to remember that Jokic
and
has expressed that this is something he wants. So
yeah, and so I'm guessing that because of Russ's ability to be a one-man show, Nikola knows that there's going to be nights against the Grizzlies and Ja Morant that they don't want to play 38 minutes and they want Russ to go out and win it on his own, right? And I'm just picking the Grizzlies out of thin air, but that Russ can carry you to wins, especially in the middle part of the year, and can literally handle the ball to take some of that stress off of Jamal and Joker in terms of getting you into your offense.
BK, I didn't expect to have my blood pressure up at this hour of the day.
All right, you can decompress.
Yeah, no, we're just gonna assume, like I said, it's a pit stop along the way. He's just having a little layover in Utah for now. But once it's all said and done, once the pieces all fall together, we will have a Russell Westbrook in Denver. I'm hoping for it. I'm praying for it. BK, I appreciate you for being on here with me, and we'll probably do a little bit more of this next week as well. You and I, we can find some things to talk about and try to get some inside information. Maybe by then we have a Westbrook in Denver, and you and I can sit down, look at the depth chart, and talk about what does this look like for the Nuggets? Where do they stand in the Western Conference? But as always, BK, it's a pleasure, and thanks for hopping on with me.
Absolutely. And with the opening ceremony of the Olympics being next Friday, we can preview the Olympics.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and spoil it now, though. I am picking Team USA to win the basketball gold medal.
Okay. Love that.
So and listen,
it was hard to see Jokic lose, but it's 2 Team USA. So it's like, all right.
But hang on real quick. You look at that box score and you're like, okay. And I pulled it up and it's like, none of those guys are in the NBA. Joker's playing with. And he's getting just bam and 80 thrown at him and he still finishes with 16 and 11, even if he went 6 of 19 from the field.
Yeah, still doing Jokic things, even on the global level. We love to see it. But thank you so much, BK, for stopping by. Appreciate you, and we'll have you on again next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, Liv.
Bye, BK. All right, chat, let's spend a couple more minutes before we close things out. This was supposed to be a 30-minute show. Obviously, the breaking news made us have to talk a little bit about some other stuff. But like I said, we went through my top 10 for the Western Conference right now. Chat, is there any last things that you guys have that you want to talk about? Really quickly, we'll spend a little bit of time together. Like I said, I'm feeling a little emotional. My blood pressure's high. My heart's racing. But I'm going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. Appreciate you guys for being here. If there's anything you guys have, I'm trying to read some of the comments. We'll see what's going on here. Westbrook. We're keeping our fingers crossed. It was announced by Woj ESPN that Westbrook is headed to Utah in a little trading cash for Dunn. But we're hoping that is just part of the process to get him in Denver. Cedric says, who could beat Team USA? Any thoughts, guys? I don't have any strong thoughts. I'm always USA. But there might be people in the chat that feel otherwise. Cedric, you had a comment earlier as well that says we don't need more players. We need healthy key players. I agree with that. I think health is obviously something. And that, again, goes into – and also congratulations on your new podcast. And I'm happy that I maybe potentially inspired you. I appreciate that. But I will tell you that I think that health is obviously a big one. And that is the reason why that point guard position feels unreliable. If Jamal were always healthy, we're fine. We're chilling. Yes, he has some inconsistencies, but he's still him, right? We know that. But he is an injured player often. And then behind him is somebody that is still unproven. So yeah, that point guard position feels a little shaky, rocky. We had Reggie Jackson. We lost Reggie Jackson. To me, there is upside with Russell Westbrook over Reggie Jackson. So to me, it's like, all right, we got to do this. We got to make some moves. Let's make it happen. So either way, you guys, we've got a few new comments. Let me read them really quick. Thank you. Great show. Appreciate it. We Broncos talk, football talk, actually in general. We've got football talk later today at 2 p.m. Mountain Time with Nate Jackson on his show called Dumb Jock. Tomorrow, Nate will also be talking specifically about the Denver Broncos. I unfortunately will not be there like I normally am. I will actually be at a Colorado Rockies game. I know. Crazier things have happened. I will be there. So I will be back doing all things content again next week, our regularly scheduled stuff. I actually think we should probably make a little graphic letting you guys know what our schedule looks like from time to time, which we do that actually on our Instagram stories. We've got a breakdown every single day of the shows that you can find and see and listen to and tune into. So make sure you're following Guerilla Sports on all things socials. You're subscribed to this very YouTube. We've got content for you every single day. Even if there is construction in the studio, we will find a way. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate you more than you know. Let's say a quick prayer that Russell Westbrook is just having a layover in Utah. He will be in Denver soon. We need him. That point guard position is feeling a little unreliable right now. Happy to see Trey Alexander over Jalen Pickett, but it's still not enough. It is still an unreliable position for this team, and it's arguably one of the most important positions on an NBA basketball team. So Westbrook to Denver, say a prayer. Much love. Appreciate you guys. And we will be back again next week for some more Denver Nuggets basketball talk. See ya.